Yes, the cold opens are getting weirder, but I'm still trusty Dave Rubin. This is the Rubin Report. It's March 20th, 2025. We're live streaming on Rumble, YouTube, and Locals. Share, subscribe. You know about the notification bell. Tap it. Maybe you'll see our videos. Who the hell knows? Post-game show, rubinreport.locals.com. And then I've got a bolt because I've got an event in West Palm Beach with the Harvard Republicans. There's like 3 of them. And they said, Dave, will you meet us in West Palm Beach and talk to us? We need help. So basically, I'm going to be a real estate agent and say, what the hell are you doing up in Boston? Come on down, move to the free state of Florida. You'll love it. You'll be happy. It's safe. It's clean. It's wonderful. And it's a beautiful day out. We are going to do a Rubin Report community Q&A on the backside of the show today, but we're going to just catch up with a couple things. And yes, there's more just craziness as it relates to people blowing up Teslas and charger stations and attacking showrooms and all that nonsense. We're going to connect this sort of depravity, I guess you would say, and this anarchistic desire that is coming from the left in so many ways. And it's all over the world right now. It's happening in Australia. It's happening in the UK. It's happening in Ireland. But there are good people pushing against it. And then we've got a little wokeness in video games. Oh, and some radical jihad. So you're going to put that all together, hand it to you, and see what happens. Let's dive in. We're going to start with my favorite Democrat. I love this woman. You know who I'm talking about already. It's Mrs. Eyelash herself, Jasmine Crockett, who's a congresswoman from Dallas. God bless you people. What have you done to yourselves? She has these huge eyebrows, but that aside for a moment, she's basically calling for violence against Elon, and that's not the type of thing we usually do in America, but she's a Democrat and it's 2025, so here you go.
So I'll make sure that I keep it short, but I am truly here for very selfish reasons. Starting with on March 29th, it's my birthday. And all I want to see happen on my birthday is for Elon to be taken down. Yes.
Oh, just taken down, maybe taken out, maybe have his car blow up, maybe have somebody attack him on the street. Like, what do you want really, lady, as you say that? That's what you want for your birthday with the big smile on your face. And you say that as the Teslas are being blown up, as they're putting graffiti and swastikas on random Teslas and going after the charger stations and breaking windows at the showrooms and all of those things. And why are they doing that? It's because people like you have somehow made it seem like because somebody's out there checking the receipts on what the government's spending, how much money they stole from us, and what they're doing with all that money, you somehow have convinced people to think that that is a bad thing. That is not good, lady. I don't like you. There is a show that I guess was popular with young people. That's what they used to say years ago, called The Daily Show. It was hosted by this guy, Jon Stewart. And John, I was an intern. Remember, some of you know this. I was an intern at The Daily Show in 1999. God, that's 26 years ago. How absolutely insane is that? I was doing stand-up at night, and I interned at The Daily Show during the day. And then I also had a part-time job, assistant manager of electronics boutique in Broadway Mall, Long Island. I don't want to brag. But the show's still on, apparently, and they've given it now. I guess John hosts it on Mondays, and then they give it to a bunch of people that nobody cares about. There's this guy, Jordan. What's his last name, Phoenix? Can you scroll for me just a little bit? Jordan Klepper. And here he is justifying and celebrating the attacks on Teslas to an applauding audience.
Tonight, the FBI and ATF now investigating multiple cases of possible arson targeting Teslas and Cybertrucks.
This dramatic video shows multiple cars in flames. Police say the attacker used Molotov cocktails. It's the latest in more than a dozen instances of arson and vandalism targeting Tesla.
The same suspect shot more Teslas with a gun. Tesla Cybertrucks were set on fire in Kansas City, and earlier this month, shots fired at a Tesla dealership in Oregon. Cybertrucks on fire in Seattle.
Wow, you guys like petty acts of domestic terrorism, huh? Cool. Wow. Okay, let me just say, nobody should be breaking the law and blowing up Teslas, especially because if you just wait a few minutes, they'll probably do it by themselves. There's a ton of rage directed at Elon right now, which is why last night he went on Sean Hannity and made the case for his victimhood. I shouldn't have to explain this to Elon, but it's not about the Teslas. If I were to hazard a guess about why they'd be mad, it might be because in the last several weeks, you fired tens of thousands of federal workers, you made cuts to veterans care, life-saving foreign aid, and food banks, you canceled important medical research, sometimes so abruptly
All right, so I don't need to go off on this guy because he's nobody. Congratulations, buddy. You get 6 figures to sit in the chair and read what they put in the prompter in front of you. It's as simple as that. But I'd rather talk about what a corporation, Comedy Central, which I think is owned by Viacom, why they are interested in putting out a quote-unquote comedy program that does glorify violence, because that's exactly what he did. He was happy to hear his audience applauding. Can you imagine? They're like, and somebody shot into a Tesla showroom, and you see the bullet hole and you see the broken window and people are applauding that. It doesn't matter what your politics are. It doesn't matter what your politics are. Like, you can't be for that. But he's wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And then the stupid joke that Teslas are blowing up by themselves, which I think happened once maybe, and they've looked into it. Like, it's just so absolutely ridiculous. But this is what the left has become. There is virtually nobody left that is sane in any way you could describe a political, sane set of thoughts to stop these people. So Jordan Klepper knows that he just has to read the teleprompter and smile as the audience applauds burning cars and all of this vandalism and everything else. And the idea that, I mean, they didn't even show you the clips of Elon speaking there. We showed you several of those clips when he was talking to Hannity yesterday, and he's talking about why he's cutting government waste and also why he's saving astronauts and why he's doing this for no money and the price, the very high price that he's paying for all of it. But it is just, what a sad state of affairs as we enter, month 3 now of Trump's presidency, where there's so many good things happening. And this is what the left has decided to do because they have no arguments to make. Kevin O'Leary, Mr. Wonderful, who goes on CNN, and when Scott Jennings, I guess, isn't there, and they're like, okay, can we get somebody sane? Get Kevin O'Leary to smack these morons around a little bit. Here he is trying to explain to them that you should not light cars on fire because you don't like the man who just saved the astronauts.
Go back to point 1. When you set a car on fire, you should go to jail. You're a criminal.
Any car,
I don't think we have to talk about it in any other
Tesla.
context. And all those cars have cameras in them, and those dealerships have cameras. You're beyond being stupid when you do that. You're going to go to jail, and you now have a government that just got their mandate. They can't wait to find idiots that do this. You're going to spend 5 to 20 years in prison. If they get them on terrorism, which I think is a stretch, they will have no parole, no shortened sentence. They'll rot in hell in prison for 20 years. And frankly, as far as I'm concerned, that's okay. Breaking in, shooting a car, setting on fire, nothing to do with the politics, nothing to do with Tesla. You are a criminal, and you should go
what about the broader
to
question
jail.
about the protest factor? I mean, you heard
What
Tim Walz.
protest? You're a criminal.
I'm talking about Tim Walz and his comments about the Tesla stock. He says it gives him a boost to see that stock going down.
That poor guy didn't check his portfolio and his own pension plan for state. It's beyond stupid what he did. He's talking down a 3.5% weighting in his own pension plan. I mean, what's the matter with that guy? He doesn't check the well-being of his own constituents in his state.
I mean,
that's their
to
investment
your
fund.
point,
What a bozo.
All right, so the last part, the violent stuff, is fairly obvious, and he's completely right. And by the way, I absolutely think you can make the argument that all of this is domestic terrorism. Domestic terrorism is violence for a political purpose. That's exactly what these people are doing. It's not a group of people who are randomly vandalizing random cars. They have a political belief, which is anti-Elon, anti-Republican, anti-Trump, anti-conservative, whatever that might be. And they are going to specific cars, specific businesses to create chaos. That is domestic terrorism. I have no problem 100% throwing the book at all of these people. And it will be very sad in some sense because you're going to find a bunch of 19-year-old kids whose brains were broken by activist teachers and bad parenting, and they're going to pay the price. So let that aside for a moment. Did you catch the end there about the pension plan? So remember we played you that clip yesterday where there is some guy that says to his wife, honey, you want to go see Tim Walz perform tonight? And Tim Walz goes up there and he's very excited because he put the stock ticker on the front of his phone now. And he can see that the Tesla stock is going down a bit. The markets are down a bit too. So this is not disconnected from overall what's happening in the country and the markets. But it turns out that he's the governor of Minnesota, that Minnesota has tons and tons of money in their pensions invested in Tesla. So it's just, not only is it just like dumb in general, like I'm happy as a public servant, I am happy that this company, the #1 car manufacturer in America, is suffering, but also their money in their pensions for the people who voted for you for God knows what reason, they are suffering too. So we're suffering from backwards wokeness. We're suffering from endless suicidal empathy, right? People who will empathize with all of the wrong things. But what we've shown you here is this is not about speech. If you want to walk outside and scream, Elon Musk is a bad man, I don't like Tesla, astronauts should be trapped in space, and all of those other things that you want to, I want more fraud in government. You want to do that, go ahead. What you're not allowed to do, of course, is break windows and shoot things and whatever. Okay, I think most of you guys understand that. Now, the problem is that not every country has the respect for free speech that we have. We have the First Amendment that protects your God-given right to free speech. Some of our allies in the West do not have that. Check this out. This is the premier of North South Wales. Yes, there's a place called North South Wales. It doesn't sound like a real place. North South Wales, where is it? His name is Chris Minns, and he is very concerned that if they repeal hate speech laws, that multiculturalism will fall apart, which kind of, you might have realized that that's the inherent problem, but go ahead.
There's been some that have been agitating in the Parliament to nullify the laws, to remove them off the statute books. Think about what kind of toxic message that would send to the New South Wales community. And I think the advocates for those changes need to explain, what do they want people to have the right to say? What kind of racist abuse do they want to see or be able to lawfully see on the streets of Sydney? I recognise, and I've fully said from the beginning, that we don't have the same freedom of speech laws that they have in the United States. And the reason for that is that we want to hold together our multicultural community and have people live in peace, free from the kind of vilification and hatred that we do see around the world.
All right, first off, Phoenix, this is rare. I'm throwing you under the bus here. You're getting thrown under the bus. It is not North South Wales. It is New South Wales. We were doing the rundown. I was like, what is NSW? What is NSW? And Phoenix said North South Wales. You're not getting lunch today. No lunch for Phoenix today. It's New South Wales. So send all of your hate mail to him. That's number one. Number two, do you see what the problem is there? Australia, which is a great country. I love Australia. I think we're going in the fall, actually, again. It's a wonderful country filled with people who love freedom, and they love Foster's beer, and they love, big knives and crocodiles and giant snakes and all of that cool stuff. They have a huge problem right now because, like many of the countries in Western Europe, they've imported all of these people. And now somehow they think that if we can stop people from saying certain things, that will protect our multicultural democracy. But we know that that doesn't work. Also, this is the same country that at the height of the lunatic Hamas protests, they had people calling to gas the Jews outside of the Sydney Opera House. That seems like it might be a bit of a stretch on the free speech side of things, and they didn't do anything about it. So it's a huge problem, but it's not just in Australia. Ireland, which we've talked about a little bit this week, it was St. Patrick's Day, obviously, on Monday, and Conor McGregor, MMA legend, went to the White House on Monday. There's some sense that he may get involved in politics, and whether he does directly or not run for prime minister or anything else, the guy is extremely outspoken about protecting Irish culture. And that is honorable, and that is not racist or anything else. But Ireland, like Britain, and like France, Germany, et cetera, have let in all of these migrants from Africa and the Middle East. They're taking over their country. They're losing their culture, and they're not happy about it. Conor McGregor tweeted this after he gave the talk at the White House. So that's him at the White House, obviously, with his family. And he wrote this on Twitter: ad hominem style attacks against me, coming in hot by Ireland's government elite. Classic and glaringly obvious to everyone. Deflection tactics. What is your response/plan of action to the issues I raised? Ireland wants to know. America wants to see. Chip chop now, fellas. Don't make me keep going. Do what you're told by the people of Ireland and we will have no issue here. Do not, and it's over for you. I will publicly send my orders for you to implement, and mark my words, it will be made to be done. You have 12 days to present a clear plan of action on dismantling Ireland's human trafficking racket, mass deportations of dangerous criminal and radicalized imports, as well as all who entered illegally, as well as all who are a strain on our welfare system, who have made no effort to secure employment or assimilate with Irish culture and values. stringent border protection adjustments to stop this from ever happening again. Be the hero here and save yourselves and save Ireland, or my direct plan of action that Ireland and America wishes to see implemented will come in on the White House paper attached with my signature. I mean, that right there, even though this is not a political leader yet, that is actually a political leader. What does this guy care about? Is he racist, or does he want Ireland to be for Irish people? Did he say that no people can come here? No. Did he say anything about white skin? No. He said we can't have people mooching off the system forever. We can't have endless amounts of people coming in forever. We have to protect something that is a multi-thousand-year-old tradition that's worth protecting. And of course, what's the media doing? Well, they're making him seem racist and everything else. Here's a tweet from Michael O'Keefe, Irish political commentator, defending Conor. He said, for the over 30 million Irish Americans, this is what's happening in Ireland and the reason Conor McGregor spoke up. Here's the scenario. You live in rural Ireland, one of the most peaceful places on planet Earth. It's so quiet you can hear the birds chirp. You know all your neighbors, many are family members. It's a tight-knit community. Then the government announced that they would open a migrant camp in your village and fill it with strange foreign men. State forces arrive, push you aside, and bully you in your own home. They erect walls and create a military-like compound with CCTV pointing at you, not the migrants. Then the roads are blocked and you can no longer access parts of your village you frequented for decades. In the end, you're left terrified and anxious with hundreds of migrants wandering around your community and calling you racist and acting like it's their home now. This is the reality all over Ireland. And of course, you're seeing some video on the side. So this is happening. We've shown you a gajillion videos. This is not just happening in Ireland. And then to the backdrop of what we just showed you, that leader in New South Australia, what he was talking about, it's like, so you bring in all these people and then you tell the natives, don't say certain things because we don't want you to seem racist. How long do you think that is going to hold? Well, Ireland has a huge problem on its hand because its political elite are completely against everything that Conor McGregor just laid out. Listen to this from Radio Europe. Breaking news, Ivana Basic, the leader of the Irish Labour Party, has condemned Conor McGregor for speaking out against mass immigration at the White House. She says his comments were outrageous and do not reflect the positive diversity of modern Ireland. Yeah, because the migrants are going to have a field day with that looker. Look at her. Check this out from Inevitable West. Breaking 1.2 million migrants are in the UK on social benefits. That's absolutely diabolical. Again, this is where the West has to choose. Our moment of choosing is here. Do you want to defend your culture, your people? Doesn't mean you're only defending a skin color or one religion, even in places that are largely one skin color and one religion, like Ireland. Conor McGregor never said nobody else can be here. He didn't say zero Muslims could be here, no Jews could be here, or anything else. But they're allowed to defend Ireland. British people are allowed to defend their homeland, as every country is, the United States is. But we are all allowing people in who are openly telling us, their actions show it, and they're openly telling us they don't like our countries very much. So this is what Gad Saad calls suicidal empathy. You will be so empathetic towards people that will gladly take you and your family out that, in essence, you will commit suicide. And this is happening across the board. This is wild. Check this out, Netflix has a new show coming out. The guy by the name of William Hain posted this, Netflix versus reality. So they're doing a new series on a 13-year-old knife murderer. As you can already get what they're doing there. In the series that they're doing, yeah, he's that 13-year-old little white kid. But the story that it's actually based off of, it's the other guy there. You can see it. I don't need to comment any further. Again, people can have poetic license. You can tell stories however you want to tell stories. Obviously, you can make shows about whatever you want, but if you're basing something on somebody of this skin color, and then you change it for obvious political purposes, is that art? Is that art? Now I want to talk about video game for just a second. I mentioned I was system manager electronics boutique back in 1999. I moved more Pokemon Red than anybody. That was my legendary what I had sitting on my desk, this guy sold a lot of Pokemon Red. So Assassin's Creed is a big video game. It's across platforms. And I'm just going to read a little bit about it for a moment, and then we'll show you what's going on here. So it was set in the 17th century Japan towards the end of the Sengoku period. The game will focus on the millennial-old struggle between the Assassin Brotherhood, who fight for peace and liberty, and the Templar Order, this is the new Assassin's Creed game, who desire peace through control from the perspectives of two protagonists, Fubayashi Nao and Yasuki. Now, interestingly, that's all about Japan, and it's all about in olden days. You can already see what's about to happen here. We have a headline from IGN. Let's not pretend we're mad the new Assassin's Creed Shadow Samurai is in Asian. So the Japanese samurai is now black. Now, I don't know how many black Japanese samurai there were back in the day. I'd have to check the books on that. He's also in a relationship with a non-binary person. I don't know. So now we're really whittling this down. How many black samurais were there back in the day? And how many of those black samurais were in a relationship with a non-binary person? Enjoy.
I do not think I have ever seen you quite so tongue-tied.
Not yet, at least. I hope you aren't easily chilled. Do you think someone might see us?
Maybe.
Do you care?
Not at all.
What happened to Mario eating mushrooms and jumping on turtles? That's what video games were back in my day. Like, what, are you even playing that? So that woman, it appears to be a woman to me, it's apparently non-binary, making out with the black samurai. Now you might say, Dave, but it's a video game, and again, it's poetic justice, and you want to, Jay, who cares about any of this? Well, what's interesting about this is that my crack team of video game specialists here pointed out to me before the show that so there's many, how many about Assassin's Creed games? Probably about a dozen of them, right? Like there's a ton of them. And they're huge, huge, huge bestsellers, these games. But in all of the previous Assassin's Creed games, they take place in different parts of the world during different time periods, and it always made sense. So for example, in Assassin's Creed Valhalla, 9th century England, it started Norse Viking. Assassin's Creed Origins, it was in Egypt, and you're not gonna believe it. The guy was Egyptian. Assassin's Creed 3 took place in 18th century America, and the guy was half Mohawk, a Native American, and half English. It all made sense. So why is it that these people have decided to politicize everything and confuse everything? So I'm not telling you it's like the most important story out there, but these subtle ways they break things. And then a young person is watching that. And look, the truth is, whether you like it or not, people get their kids especially are getting their information in different ways, whether it's coming from TikTok or it's coming from YouTube or it's coming from video games. And there's a kid that's out there right now playing this freaking game, although apparently it's doing quite poorly and Ubisoft is in a lot of trouble because of it financially, that's playing this game going, yes, like he's going to go into social studies class the next day and be like, yeah, there were black samurais and they used to make out with chicks with dicks. And let's talk about PDS debt for a minute. We'll have more on the other side. Let's be real. Being buried under credit card bills, personal loans, or medical debt is exhausting. It feels like every paycheck comes in just to go right back out to the lenders, leaving you stuck in the same cycle. I've been there. It's stressful. It's frustrating and feels like there's no way out. But there is, and that's where PDS debt comes in. PDS debt isn't just another debt company throwing generic advice at you. They actually take the time to understand your situation and build a personalized plan that makes sense for you. No cookie cutter nonsense, just a real path to financial freedom that works with your lifestyle. And here's the kicker. You don't need a minimum credit score to get help. Bad credit, fair credit, it doesn't matter. PDS Debt's goal is to help you save more, pay off debt faster, and get back into control of your life. Because your money should be working for you, not just padding your lender's pockets. I know how overwhelming it can feel when you're drowning in payments, but the worst thing you can do is nothing. Every day you wait, you're losing more money to interest and fees. So take 30 seconds right now and go to pdsdebt.com/Rubin to complete a free debt assessment. It costs you nothing to see your options, but it could save you thousands. That's pdsdebt.com/Rubin, pdsdebt.com/Rubin. Take back control today. All right, so let's just continue a little bit more with this because, again, you can sort of look at all of these small things. Oh, it's a video game. Oh, it's a Netflix show. And it's like, are these the biggest issues in some sense? In some ways, I get why people would argue they're not. But again, politics is downstream from culture. That's what Andrew Breitbart said 20 years ago, and I think most people realize that now. And when we watch our cultures kind of just crumble, well, then our politics are up for grab, and usually bad people end up in control. So this is another thing. This was going wildly viral yesterday on X. This is an ad for a burger joint in Canada. That's all I'm going to say. They sell burgers at a burger joint in Canada called Burger Factory. This is their ad to sell burgers.
Hey, halal boy. Assalamu alaikum, sister. What are you doing here? What does it look like I'm doing? I'm studying the art of patience. You can't eat for another 4 hours. Oh, Ramadan, the month of patience.
There's several issues here. I would say the least of which being that there was bacon on his burger. So the little white kid who's in the burger joint has bought the burger and is just smelling the burger, is smelling the fried pork, and he just has to wait a few more hours to eat the pork that he's going to eat on Ramadan. What does that have to do with selling burgers? Also the fact that it's kind of a hot chick and a kid, and there's just so much there. Canada, you are cooked. Snowbirds, stay here in Florida. Figure out how to do it. It's not gonna be easy now because we got Tom Homan and we may come after you, but figure it out because your country is just done, absolutely done. And by the way, some of this is happening in the United States too. We're getting better. We're starting to deport people. We're pushing back against some of this nonsense. But this probably should have been the lead story on every major news network yesterday in light of where this took place. So we get it. There are these Hamas protests all over the place, calling for genocide, stopping kids from going to school, all of the stuff. Okay, fine. Yesterday, the Hamas people went to the World Trade Center. Was there something that happened at the World Trade Center about 24 years? Yeah.
Hey guys, no one's going in there. We're gonna block the doors. Forget it. No one's going in here. There's a street march. Go ahead. No more in here, guys. That's it. Let's block those doors. That's it. No more. No one else is going in there.
How does a culture die? I would say probably slowly for a while and then very quickly. And we might be, see, I don't think the United States is exactly in the quickly part. This is a very specific thing happening in New York City and a few other places. And because of our states that are so wildly different, that shit doesn't happen here in Florida and it won't happen in Texas, and okay, fine. But if you would have said to somebody on September 12th, 2001, I was in New York City for that. My dad was in New York City for that. My grandma was in New York City. My cousin was a firefighter from Long Island who went in to help rescue people and all of those things. And I had friends that had lost family members from high school, like all sorts of stuff. But if you had said to someone, 24 years later, we're gonna have people dressed up like Islamic jihadist militants, and they're just gonna be wandering into the Trade Center. Why would you let any of them in? None of them should be there. You wanna protest, you wanna LARP and put on a mask and call for genocide, okay, fine, but you can't do it in private buildings. You can't do it on the street and block all of these things. We know this. This is all becoming repetitive. But at some point, put aside all the legal issues for a moment. At some point, how long can a society hold? If a society says, yeah, you don't like the guy saving the astronauts, you can blow up a Tesla station. And oh, you don't like America's foreign policy, or you hate that little place in the Middle East that's the size of New Jersey, yeah, you can take over buildings and you can do all of these other things and you can vandalize and everything else. How long as a society does that culture hold? And if you were in Ireland right now, if you're in Ireland or if you're in Britain or you're in France or Germany, if you could go back 15 years, would you do it differently? And the obvious answer is every native person would do it differently, every single one. They might have risked being called racist 15 years ago. So we have a chance to fix it in America. And the rot is really deep. I mean, look at this. This is New York City. Couple days ago, here's a guy who could just as easily be someone who is a Hamas member in Gaza. Look how he's dressed and listen to what he wants to do.
Hamas is fighting the Zionists. Yeah.
Omar, are you going to go kill Jews?
I'm not going to kill Zionists.
You're going to kill Zionists?
Yeah, Zionists.
How many Zionists do you want to kill?
As many as I can.
You want to kill as many Zionists as you can?
Yeah, I don't know. I'm a Zionist.
That's interesting.
Want to kill me.
How old are you that you want to kill Zionists?
Huh?
So you want to kill me?
You're a Zionist?
I'm a Zionist. So you want to kill me?
Let's go to Palestine and we'll celebrate.
Okay. So we can have the debate about free speech there. He's saying he wants to kill Zionists. A Zionist just means someone that believes the state of Israel should exist. There are hundreds of millions of Christian Zionists. There are obviously Jewish Zionists. There are atheist Zionists. Like basically, unless you think that there should be another Holocaust, you're a Zionist. They're only the word Zionist. No one used the word Zionist really for 50 years until October 7th, when suddenly they couldn't just be like, we want to kill all the Jews. Let's rehash this word that was really started in the 1800s. But okay, that kid, he's a mind-muddled kid. Somebody can identify him, and he should be identified. He wants to kill Zionists. So there can be the debate around free speech. If you're out there saying, I want to kill these people, that's pretty much as close as you can get to a violation of the First Amendment. But putting aside the legal part for a moment, how long can it work in a city like New York City, where if you were just, let's try it two ways. You're a Jewish family that lives in Long Island. You came in to watch Wicked with your kids, and you walk by Hamas people, and they're talking about killing Zionists. How many times would you come back into New York City? On top of the congestion pricing, which is becoming a real problem. But let's forget those pesky Jews. You're a Christian family, you live in Nebraska, and you came in and you wanted to see, what's another play that's out there now? They got the Jersey Boys, or what else is out there? Lion King 7? Give me something. What, the Jersey Boys, is that still on Broadway? Give me something, what's hot on Broadway? Hamilton. You want to go see Hamilton, a bunch of black founders of the country singing, or something like that, whatever the hell that thing's about. But you come from Nebraska and you just walk in, and then, I don't know, you have your 6-year-old daughter and you just went to the American Girl store. You got her a nice doll and she's walking around with the doll. And then there's a guy and he has an effigy of Donald Trump and he's beheading. And you just got the doll. And she's going, well, I don't want them to behead my little doll here. That was an accent of a little girl from Nebraska. You see the problem. Put aside the legal part for a second. How long can a society operate this way? If you were at a restaurant, and if I was just sitting at a restaurant, I'm going to New York City. I'm going to be on Gutfeld next Thursday. And if I'm going to New York City and I'm just sitting at a restaurant and there's a guy dressed like a Hamas guy, and I guess every now and again you'd have to pull down the mask to chew, so they do take the mask off to eat. But if I'm just walking down the street and I just see a Hamas guy, how should I feel as an American? And we better start thinking about this, because we could end up where Ireland's at, and we could end up where the UK is at, and we could end up where Germany, France, et cetera, et cetera. Also, for some reason, we've let people with penises chase people with vaginas. And that's just not great. It's just not a great thing to do. Here's a dude, full-on dude guy, winning the girls' 400-meter varsity race in Portland by a rather large margin, about 7 seconds. Enjoy.
Come on, Kelly!
How absolutely effing deranged do you have to be applauding a guy beating all of those girls by 7 seconds in a race? And if you're those girls, I have nothing but sympathy for you, but you might want to every girl out there that is told that she has to compete with a boy should be boycotting all of these things. It's the only way in some of these really wacky places, like, the federal government is not funding these things, but in places like Oregon, where this is still happening, or Maine, which is now having their funding cut by the federal government, the girls need to stop. And can you imagine being a parent? How disgusting. I literally, as a parent of 2 young boys, I cannot imagine. I mean, it's hard to even figure out what the reverse of that would be, because boys just are bigger and faster. It's how it is. It's just how it is. Sorry. But as a parent, so you have a young daughter, 15, 16 years old in high school. The girl wants to run, wants to swim, wants to play volleyball, play basketball, and she's losing to a boy. And you're applauding it like a seal. How absolutely pathetic. So again, what we're painting here is this sort of culture rot that's happening across the board. Where else is it happening? Well, of course, it's happening at our universities. John D. Cook, who's a political commentator, put this up. Harvard denying admissions to students with perfect SAT scores and AP calculus credit, while also admitting students who need remedial math. Yes, that's right. So congratulations, Harvard. Like that. Kyle Kashuv, you guys remember Kyle Kashuv? He's been on the show a couple times. He was one of the survivors of the Parkland shooting, became a wonderful advocate for the Second Amendment. He was actually an intern at the Rubin Report. He's a great kid. He's in tech now. He's sort of out of politics. He graduated his Parkland school, #1 in his class, perfect SATs, got into Harvard. Then they rescinded the order. They rescinded the acceptance largely, basically, because they didn't like his politics. So congratulations, Harvard. Like, you guys will just keep going there. But where is this coming from? Well, it's coming from what, again, Gad Saad calls suicidal empathy. And who has this the most? Well, it's usually white liberal women.
Also see this. White women with at least a college degree, the only group of white voters that really kind of is on the left politically, aligned with progressive causes, democratic politics. Give you an example here. It's that DEI question, right here, that we asked about in our poll. We had 2 big statements we read to voters. Basically, do you want to continue DEI programs, or do you think they should be ended? And again, look at this divide here. White men, no degree, end it. White men with a degree, end it, they say. White women, no degree, end it, they say, by double digits. And then white women with a college degree, completely different by a nearly 40-point margin, they say, to continue.
That's what social conditioning is, guys. So when you see, or if you've read Irreversible Damage by Abigail Schreier, who I had on the show a couple weeks ago, when you see all these young girls that are suddenly confused about their gender and gender identity, and then they suddenly find it attractive. I mean, you see at a lot of these Hamas rallies, it's young girls. Often it's young Asian girls too, which is a sort of offshoot of white people, I suppose, at this point. But then that extrapolates over the years. And then you have these women who will be the first to be raped and beheaded and everything else when you let all these people in. You have these generally well-to-do liberal women who suffer from suicidal empathy. Instead of being for policies that would protect them as women, their trans kids as trans kids, and everything else, they are the ones that are ushering in the policies that will kill themselves. And that's why the phrase suicidal empathy is so good. I got one more for you before we jump to the community Q&A. JD Vance, who I keep saying, he's getting a little lost in the shuffle here, and I actually think it's kind of good because Elon and Trump have just loomed so large over everything, and JD is just going to places, doing the right thing, giving great speeches, making the case for America and everything else. He gave a speech the other day where he was talking about this Democrat obsession with importing cheap labor, right? We've heard this repeatedly, that who's going to pick your crops if we don't let the Mexicans do it, even though it's all going to be replaced by AI. And he just gave a great talk about this. I thought it was worth showing today.
And whether we were offshoring factories to cheap labor economies or importing cheap labor through our immigration system, cheap labor became the drug of Western economies. And I'd say that if you look in nearly every country from Canada to the UK that imported large amounts of cheap labor, you've seen productivity stagnate. I don't think that's not a total happenstance. I think that the connection is very direct. Now, one of the debates you hear on the minimum wage, for instance, is that increases in the minimum wage force firms to automate. So a higher wage at McDonald's means more kiosks. And whatever your views on the wisdom of the minimum wage, I'm not going to comment on that here. Companies innovating in the absence of cheap labor is a good thing. I think most of you are not worried about getting cheaper and cheaper labor. You're worried about innovating, about building new things, about the old formulation of technology is doing more with less. You guys are all trying to do more with less every single day. And so I'd ask my friends, both on the tech optimist side and on the populist side, not to see the failure of the logic of globalization as a failure of innovation. Indeed, I'd say that globalization's hunger for cheap labor is a problem precisely because it's been bad for innovation. Both our working people, our populists, and our innovators gathered here today have the same enemy. And the solution, I believe, is American innovation.
He's really, really good. I don't know who his speechwriter is, but I know those are I've heard him at private events and plenty of public things. Like, this is the stuff he believes in, and he's absolutely right. The globalists, basically, the ones who want us to have no borders and all be the same, have ushered in all of these bad things, right? Because when you stop doing what is right for yourself as a country, you ultimately will stop innovating. Like, it's just like, oh, someone else will fix it. And that other person happens to be Klaus Schwab, and he's not a great guy, right? And it's interesting, he even said, I'm not even gonna discuss the minimum wage here. Like, from my position, the government has no right to tell anyone how much they're supposed to be earning. That's what you leave the markets to. But the broader point there is, you bring in all of these people for cheap labor, you're going to keep a permanent underclass of people, and then innovation's gonna happen. He says innovation is good, and the point is, it's gonna happen whether you like it or not. So you're gonna bring in all of these people for the low-level jobs while you're cheering what a great person you are, right? You're gonna get them on the government dole, and then innovation's gonna come in, it's gonna kick them off out of their jobs, and then you're gonna have a lower class of people with no jobs and anything else to do, and then, oh, you might be able to send them to public schools. Well, they'll learn how bad the system is, and then they'll start blowing up Tesla factories and wearing keffiyehs and calling for terrorism. I don't know how I came up with that. Let's talk about G-Defy for a moment, and then we'll have a Rubin Report Locals.com community Q&A. You guys know I'm all about logic and reason. Well, here's some logic. If your feet are killing you at the end of the day, you need better shoes. That's why I love G-Defy shoes by Gravity Defier. Unlike trendy sneakers, these are built on real shock-absorbing technology. Their patented VersoShock system absorbs impact, returns energy, and helps align your body so whether you're walking, running, or standing all day, it feels effortless. Right now, my listeners get 30% off orders over $120. Just text Rubin30 to 91888 or visit gdefy.com and use code Rubin30 at checkout. Use logic, choose comfort, G-Defy. All right, community Q&A, let's do it. Lynn says, what is your take on the JFK files? After all these years, do you think there are pages missing and or shredded at this point that would have really told us who were involved? I just find it odd that it finally gets released and there's no real smoking gun, so then why hold it back all this time? Look, I think JFK himself would agree with you. You know, one of JFK's big things before he got murdered, regardless of who did it, was that he wanted to break the CIA into, what did he say, 1,000 pieces, 1,000,000 pieces, that he did not want secrecy in government. You can argue that states need secrets to some extent, that states need secrets, you need spies, you need some level of control over some sort of information. You can make that argument, but let's put that aside for just a second. I don't know why they held on to it this long. Look, I'm not going to sit here and tell you I read all 80,000 pages, but you know, the funny part was I tweeted out right when it came out 2 minutes later. I was like, basically, you're going to see a lot of conspiracy theories right now. And I don't suspect that we're going to get any real smoking gun. And it's 2+ days later now, and I don't think we have any smoking gun. You know, you can see people like they're doing like the conspiracy theory meme, like of like all the pictures on the wall and like you're kind of crazy, like pointing to this and that. Look, did the CIA have something to do with it? Did LBJ have something to do with it? Was it just the lone shooter? Like, I don't know. I don't know. As I said the other day, I really like the movie JFK. Even though I think, what's his name, Oliver Stone's gone kind of bananas politically over the years and become really a lefty maniac, but I really did like that movie. And it's worth watching to think about some of the ways that maybe this conspiracy sort of happened, and did it have something to do with the mafia? And like, there's all sorts of things there. But I don't see a smoking gun. I think, is it possible that pages were redacted? I mean, I think Trump said that nothing was redacted, but is it possible that he wouldn't even know and things are missing and everything else? But the point is, here we are. And I think if you really care about this, which you should as an American, like what happened back then, the best thing we can do now is what we've done, which is you bring in guys like Kash Patel, you bring in guys like Dan Bongino, you bring in people like Tulsi Gabbard at Intelligence and the FBI and CIA, and you start cleaning them up. You just start cleaning them up. So whatever corruption we all feel was there, whether we can exactly pinpoint to what happened or not, so that doesn't happen again. I really think that's it. I did not think the night before it was like, oh, we're going to wake up and they're going to be like, oh, it was, you know, Colonel Mustard in the library with the candlestick. Like, Talway says, with district courts trying to tell the president what to do since they don't have either the House or the Congress, doesn't this put the president between a rock and a hard place where if he listens to them, it hinders his ability to negotiate with international leaders? But if he ignores them, it gives the media and the left fodder for saying he's a dictator. Okay, so we taped our episode for tomorrow, our 11 a.m. episode with Josh Hammer. Josh Hammer is editor-in-chief at Newsweek. He has a new book out. He has a show on Newsmax, but he's a lawyer. And we got into this. We spent the first 10 minutes before we started talking about the book about this issue now, where Trump is saying deport these people, and now lower level judges are trying to put injunctions to stop him from doing it. There's arguments on both sides, and obviously we have separation of powers. So the whole idea is that the judicial branch is supposed to make sure that when the executive branch or the legislative branch is doing something, that it's actually legal and it works its way up the court. And ultimately, the Supreme Court is the final arbiter on what is or isn't legal. What seems to be happening here, and Josh laid this out with extremely good legal precedent. He went into a whole bunch of cases and everything else. So if you want more on that, the first 10 minutes will be really interesting for you tomorrow. What's basically happening here, and Josh's argument is, no, this is not actually the judicial branch acting properly, is if you let any lower level judge put an injunction to stop the executive branch from doing something, the executive branch basically doesn't exist, because you can get any judge to basically say anything, and then you could just stall a president for 4 years. That's not what the separation of powers are about. If something over time works its way up to the Supreme Court, and then the Supreme Court says, oh, the executive branch doesn't have that power, okay, then they can fight it out. Then you can make an argument that the president can't do this. But the way this is being done right now, where it's activist lower level judges, is a huge problem. So I tend to agree with Trump on this. He's doing exactly what he ran on. That's number one. Number two, these are lower level judges. This isn't the Supreme Court. And just again, put the pure legality part of it aside for a second. How could a president operate? If a president was to try to make peace between Russia and Ukraine, and for whatever reason a court could get involved, or they were going to try to do deportations, which they promised, or they were going to try to cut government funding, which they promised, and every time they did it, or they were trying to get men out of women's sports, and every time they made a choice, some random judge could stop it. That's not how a system functions either. So there's like the strictly legal version, and then I think there's a societal layer that we better be able to understand, otherwise we're in a lot of trouble. Lo'Brien says, what has been your favorite place to visit and why? You know, I've mentioned a couple of times when we do the Off the Grid August thing, for a couple of years we went to Bora Bora when we finally had a little bit of money, and I was like, let's do something crazy. And I think Connor snagged a couple of pictures. So these are not pictures that we took, but these are the types of pictures that you're going to get in Bora Bora. And you can stay in one of these huts that's above the water, and some of them have glass floors, so you're literally seeing, you know, sharks and fish and all sorts of cool stuff underneath, and you can go scuba diving and snorkeling with them. And you feel, you know, it's French Polynesia, which is kind of funny that it's French, because I have a feeling some of the Polynesians there think that the French are occupying them, because your only job as a Polynesian is to work at a hotel, while the French people have all the good jobs, but that's not something we want to talk about here. But if you go to one of these places, and they're insanely expensive, obviously you don't have to stay over the water, but even that's insanely expensive. The flights are long virtually wherever you are. You know, we used to go when we lived in LA, it's a flight to, I think it's to Tahiti, then you fly to Bora Bora on a shorter flight, and then you have to take a boat to get to the separate islands. Anyway, it's a long slog, but it is quiet, and the air is clean. And, you know, most of the people there are there for special occasions or for honeymoon, something. So nobody really wants to talk to anybody. It's quiet, it's beautiful, the food is great. And you're just at the edge of the universe. You just literally, it looks like you're just in a futuristic movie, just staring at the edge of the universe, and it's just wonderful. So if you can save up the money, again, it is not cheap, but it is just so worth doing. Marcus says, has MAGA ever done anything like the attacks on Tesla? I know the left would point to January 6th, but everyone knows it's BS. Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, you can see a lot of that. Well, they're excusing it. Well, you people did January 6th. I'm not even going to address January 6th. Forget that. No, I can't imagine it. What would be the reverse version of this? So the reverse version of this would somehow something like Joe Biden was president. Joe Biden, I think he once actually did bring a Land Rover to the White House, right? Was that the car he got in? Was it a Land Rover? Do you guys remember? It was a Jeep. He gets in a Jeep, and then suddenly people are really pissed because it looks like he's in collusion with the Jeep people. And then then MAGA people, after they go and they lynched somebody at a subway, then go and start breaking windows at a Jeep factory. Like, you can't even, none of it sounds right? Like, it just does not sound right. So no, I don't think and by the way, there's a fundamental reason for that, and it's the beauty of what the now wide tent MAGA movement has become. If you love America, it is inherent that you would not try to burn America down. You would not key somebody's car because you don't like the owner of the car company. Now, it's not to say that individual people don't do stupid things, and of course they have, and people pull up signs of political people and all of that stuff, of course. But by and large, the MAGA movement now represents what the Constitution represents, what the promise of America represents. And if you love that, you understand that there is some social contract, which is sort of what I've been talking about when I'm talking about why you can't occupy buildings on a college campus so kids can't get in, or why you can't blow up Tesla factories. Phoenix, roll with me a little bit here. Shecky Green says, where were the district court judges when Joe Biden and Mayorkas were flying them into our country over the border and releasing them into the homeland? Well, isn't that something? If you ever wanted a lower court judge to do something, it absolutely was unconstitutional to open up our border. And not only open up our border, but then literally have border agents telling people how you get to other states and literally flying people. We saw so many videos of that. I put up that picture. I was at the Miami airport, and this thing went super, super viral. It was covered virtually everywhere, even in mainstream media. I saw a picture while I was online for pre-TSA. There was a separate line, and it said something like, if you do not have identification, if you are not from America, it said something like, you can come into this line, you don't have to take a picture, just tell us where you're going. Like, the most absurd, insane things you can possibly imagine. Where were the court judges on that? Because that actually was illegal. Galvin Tin says, if you could remove one politician from the current landscape, who would it be and why? And if you could appoint one person to a position or office, who would it be and why? I mean, I guess the easiest one to remove, because it's just so damn obvious. Rashida Tlaib, I actually believe, is offering material support to Hamas. I think that will come out, and I think she probably will get kicked out of Congress. I think she fundamentally hates this country. I think she hates freedom. I think she's made that fairly obvious. I think she is pro-terrorism, and she has turned Dearborn, Michigan into a place that most people wouldn't recognize as a place that is American. And so, yeah, I'm not for scratching her car or burning her house down. But yeah, it would be good if she was not in Congress, and they should really look into some of the things she's done. We know it. And what was the other question? Who would I want in government? Was that the question? I was trying to think, we have such a good collection right now. Like, that's been the nice part of the Trump thing between Elon and Sachs and Tulsi and Bobby and all of those things. It's like, I don't know, maybe we need somebody that could communicate some of these ideas and link it back to the story of the West. And, I was at ARC in London, Jordan Peterson's Alliance for Responsible Citizenship. And that's so much of what ARC is about. How is it that we in the West, we allow all this ridiculousness that I've shown you on the show today? How is it that we allow this in the West? And whether it's Canada or here or elsewhere. Why do we do this? And it's partly because we've stopped telling the story of what is right about our culture, where we came from, how these ideas were churned out over time. So maybe having Jordan, he's not even American, although he lives in America now, I think. Well, see, maybe he got his citizenship, I'm not even sure. But how about that? And once a month, he gives a big talk to all of America about how the hell did we get here and what will happen if we give it away, because the guy's got a pretty good track record on getting stuff right. Tiger151, why are they saying we need clean air, not another billionaire? Isn't that the point of Tesla? I mean, that is one of the many hypocrisies of these people. The one I always point to is, if you really believed in climate change, well, then Barack Obama, you wouldn't live on a 30-acre thing on the water in Martha's Vineyard, and Bill Gates, you wouldn't live in, I think, the most expensive house in all of, Washington. He has his house on the water in Seattle. So their hypocrisy knows no bounds. But if you really believed in any of that, if you're just the foot soldier, not even one of the rich elitists who can figure it out when all hell breaks loose, but if you're just one of the foot soldiers and you really believed, if AOC, when she said it 6 years ago that we got 12 years to live, if she believed it, then she would never be going after the guy who's trying to get us off Earth. On top of doing cars with renewable energy and less fossil fuels and all of those things, the guy who's trying to get us there, go watch Interstellar. When the shit hits the fan, we're gonna have to get some ships up there and we're gonna have to find some better places to live. And you guys hate the very people who are doing the work to do that. I'm starting to think you don't believe the shit that you're spewing. Let's talk about Rumble Premium for a minute and then a couple other questions. Free speech is under attack, but Rumble refuses to back down. We've always believed in empowering voices, no matter how unpopular, and now we're taking that fight to the next level. When major advertisers conspired to pull their dollars, even brands like Dunkin' Donuts turned their backs, claiming Rumble had a right-wing culture. But we're not here to fit a mold, we're here to defend free expression. To strengthen this mission, we're excited to offer Rumble Premium, a completely ad-free experience with exclusive benefits for viewers and creators. You'll find exclusive content from creators like Russell Brand, Dr. Disrespect, Timcast, and the Mug Club with Crowder. It's more than a subscription, it's a stand for free speech. Your voice matters. Join Rumble Premium. For a very limited time, you can get $20 off an annual plan using promo code RumbleLive. Visit rumble.com/premium and claim your special sale discount today. Elizabeth says, do you think we'll ever get back to a time when being an expert in a certain field means something? It seems like people are finding a topic, making up as much information as they can about said topic, and then claiming they're experts based on the made-up information they've now memorized. That is a great question, and I hope that over the next year, I'll address that a little bit more and maybe introduce you to some people that actually are experts, whether it's in history or in science or whatever the vertical might be, because this is a huge problem. And there's so many reasons and there's so many ways we can look at this problem, right? The mainstream media and the expert class, like you just have to look at COVID, the people that we were supposed to kind of trust. So the scientific community that we were supposed to trust as it pertained to viruses and public health and everything else. So many of them utterly failed us. The institutions, the NIH, you can look at the people specifically, Fauci, all of these people failed us. And then what happened? Well, they failed us at the exact same time the media was failing us, right? Because the media was lying about COVID basically in bed with them. So you have your trusted institutional layer that starts failing, and then your media layer that's supposed to basically, the media layer is supposed to translate that. So you have people that are the true professionals, the true researchers, the true people who are on the quest of science, which is a quest of truth. You have those people. Now those people have that, those ideas have to be communicated somehow so that we can have sensible policy. Well, then the media layer, they all became activists, right? Generally Democrat activists. So that layer failed, and then the media layer failed. Now all of that failed, then what did it do? Well, in the last 5 years, you know what it did. It basically led to the rise in alt media and all that. Now that I would say broadly is pretty good to have more voices in there. I'm one of them. But it also led to the complete destruction of the expert class. So you're completely right. You see on all these podcasts now, people who are not really experts in anything, but do have the internet. And they can suddenly pretend that they know everything about everything. It's one of the biggest problems we have. We need to reverse. It's also why people are so keen to go down conspiracy theories. Because once the expert layer class kind of proved that they were not trustworthy, then everyone's like, well, everything's up in the air. And as Douglas Murray talks about, a society that's failing will start questioning everything, right? Because if we're at the point where we don't know the difference between boys and girls, or we don't know that America is fundamentally good or not, then why wouldn't we question every other little thing out there? So we got very close to that precipice. I do think in light of Trump and some of the things that are happening right now, we are, let's say, moving back a little bit. But this is deeply, deeply dangerous. And it's something I've been thinking about a lot. It's something that, I try not to, on this show, I tell you when I'm not an expert in something. So like we did the story on Greenland the other day. It's like, I'm not an expert in internal Greenland politics, but I can read the story to you. And then hopefully we can bring on other people that can explain some of these things. And then hopefully you can take some of that information and do something with it. But all these people that think they know everything about everything, these are often people who could not tie their shoes, and we have to rebuild that layer. We have to rebuild that layer. I don't know how you do it in the situation that we're in right now, but it's something we all got to think about. Mark says, do you think Trump's rejection of Biden's pardons will stand up in court? It's similar to the question about deportations. The courts are somewhat out of control right now. I do think a lot of things are going to end up at the foot of the Supreme Court. And then the question really is Chief Justice John Roberts. You know, Trump tweeted out something the other day that I thought was quite good. It's like, you always basically know which way the liberals are going to vote. Why is it that the conservatives on the court seemingly do a little bit of both? Now, it's probably because they're a little more honest, actually, than the purely partisan ones that tend to be the more liberal judges. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think what I can say is I think Trump is just going to keep going. And if things have to be tied up in the courts and he has to just keep fighting and fighting and fighting, there's every reason to think that he will. Caesar says, Matt from Demolition Ranch just quit YouTube so he can spend more time with his kids before they leave his house. Garth Brooks retired from music to raise his kids as well and only came back after they were grown. Do you foresee yourself doing something similar and stepping away to do more dad stuff? Wow. So I actually don't know who that guy is, the first guy that you mentioned, but I'll assume he's a big YouTuber, probably doing some good stuff. I obviously know who Garth Brooks is. You know, it's interesting. I work from home, right? So every morning I have my morning time with the kids always. And, you know, then I leave the studio usually for lunch and I hang with them for a little bit. And then I'm in and out of things every day. So David obviously is spending more time with the kids on a day-to-day basis than I am, but I try to make sure I'm reading them stories before bed, and as much as I can, I travel a bit more and everything else. I can tell you this, I'm not looking to retire anytime soon. I'm not looking to put this down. I love what we're doing. I think collectively, I would say we've all never been better at what we're doing, and there's a lot of things that we still want to do. But within that, you know, we do pre-tape our Friday show a little bit more now, so I have a little more time with the kids. We're trying to figure out some ways to balance that. It's because, yeah, you're right. It is different than, say, 7 years ago or even 5 years ago when I didn't have kids. It was a simpler life, I suppose. But it's a much richer life now, and you want to make sure that you're around for all that good stuff. And, you know, nobody says the day before they die, I wish I spent more time at the office. So I don't know. It'll be something that'll just present itself organically, I suppose. I thank you for watching the program today. We will do a post-game show, and then the kids still have the St. Patty's Day pots of gold out there. So we've been running and looking for the gold. We have yet to find the midget, but there's always hope. And that has nothing to do with St. Patty's Day. Thanks for watching post-game show, RubinReport.locals.com in a minute. Ciao.
But she got to the point where just sort of physically, she needed more care than she wanted.
Right.
And just the anxiety that